Yo, what's up, Fantasy World? It's the time of the week again. Happy weekend, everyone, and welcome to Fantasy Basketball PH podcast. And we bring to you, as always, the weekly head 3 head, our weekly grind with my two bro chachos. So I have here, of course, NBA Fantasy Bible, Daniel Mack, and then, of course, Eric from Day to Day Fantasy. What's up, broskis?
G'day, guys. How are you?
Everything's fine. Thank you. How are you guys?
Yeah, really good. Thank you, friends. Thanks, guys.
I'm tired. I'm tired. I've been five drafts wherein I'm doing commentary. Earlier, shout out to our Champions League in FBPH. It was really tough. It was a tough 16 team draft. It was fun. It was fun doing so. Quick share. I'm doing the recording like this, like what we're doing, and then on the other side of my ear, I'm plugged in the Facebook call because I've been talking to them while we're drafting. And then while doing those, I'm actually drafting on my phone. So imagine doing everything. So, but yeah, it was fun. It was tiring, but hopefully I did well. Hopefully I did well. Anyways, um, preseason is done. We saw several teams. Me, you can see in my face. Can you see it? Can you see it? How happy I am? I'm happy with the team that I'm gonna talk about later. But to our audience and viewers today, we are going to talk about several teams. Not all. Unfortunately, we don't have time. And talk about the team plus what we've noticed during the preseason. How would it impact our initial assumptions? How would it impact the big names within their teams? Might it be fantasy related? Of course, heavily on that, but some are reality based, right? So let's start off with DMAC. Which five teams do you have for us right now?
Yeah, look, we'll start with one of the big guys, the Clippers. So today we heard from Tyrone Lue that Terrence Mann will actually be one of the starters. So that's pretty massive. I guess there could still be some changes with a potential Harden trade to come. But at this stage, Terrence Mann will start with PG-13, Russell Westbrook, Kawhi Leonard, and Ivica Zubac, which is which is great for Terrence Mann, not necessarily for fantasy purposes, but it's great for his career. Some might even say that the Clippers are trying to boost his trade value in a potential swap with Philly. But we'll see how that plays out. But what that does as well is sort of relegates Robert Covington. So this time last week, maybe slightly before that, there was some discussions around Covington's value. So we know that Roko has some value in the past, huge value, fantasy darling actually. So with those defensive stats, with the rebounds, with the 3-point shooting, that's fantastic stat set for fantasy. Unfortunately for him and unfortunately for us as well, Terrence Mann's going to take that starting position. So doesn't mean that Robert Covington's not going to have any value whatsoever, but it's going to be a lot less than what we were actually hoping for. So that was something that was a new development as of today. Apart from that, I think with Paul George coming back, hopefully he's going to be playing more games this season. Same goes for Kawhi Leonard. They're similar boats as well. We've heard about the NBA having the protocols around games played as well, but I think Kawhi Leonard may actually get around those rules. So we'll see how things play out. A lot to play out. Hopefully, a trade could happen because personally, I have James Harden on one of my major teams, one of my keeper leagues actually. So hopefully something plays out shortly so that we can get some clarity on that. But at this stage, it looks like it's quite a settled lineup. A lot of depth as well. So we won't go into too much depth tonight. But yeah, they have a really deep team. So the guys that are on the bench are probably not going to have a great deal of value unless we see PG-13 or Kawhi Leonard either go down injured, which we don't want, or have those rest nights. So you'll be able to stream some of those other guys in like Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, even Kenyon Martin Jr. So yeah, Clippers, really interesting. But yeah, we'll move on to their cross town
I
rivals,
have
the Lakers. But yeah,
I have a very quick question. Um, Kawhi Leonard and PG-13. How confident are you in terms of drafting them?
I'm more confident in PG-13's ability to stay on the court, but then the upside of Kawhi Leonard is there as well. So if you can get, and I've seen a lot of drafts go through where he's being taken at the end of the second round in standard leagues. I'm okay with that because we know he's got top 10, even higher upside when he's on the court. It's just those missed games will drop him down a bit. But we saw at the end of last season, he was healthy. He was playing those back to backs, and he came home like a steam train. So perhaps it's another occasion where he does the same. So he may be able to help you come playoff times.
Yeah, I just want to give some boost with those who drafted Kawhi and Paul George that are watching right now and listening to it. So yeah, I just wanted to ask that. Go ahead, D-Man.
Yeah, so let's go across to the Lakers now. So you either love them or hate them, but we know that they're going to be one of the favorites in the West. They're always going to be competitive with LeBron, with AD. But now they've got Austin Reeves, so he's their clear number 3, and I think he's actually really good number 3. And so if you're able to pick him up, let's say in the 80s or 90s in drafts, I think you'll be really happy because not only does he provide a really solid stat set, great percentages, he'll pop off on occasions as well. But those days that LeBron is resting or AD is resting, he's going to go buck wild. So I think that's a great pick if you're able to get him in the 80s or the 90s, or even if you could get him in the hundreds for whatever reason. That's a great steal. Obviously, we've still got D'Lo, so I think he's still got some good value in the mid to late rounds, probably later rounds. Jared Vanderbilt is currently injured, probably questionable for their opening night. So it could be someone like a Rui Hachimura that steps in for him. So we'll wait and see. We haven't got clarity around that at this stage, but we'll see what happens. Perhaps Vanderbilt does get up for the first game for the Lakers. But apart from that, pretty settled team. People do like drafting Christian Wood. I'm not the biggest fan of Wood, even when he was playing close to 30 minutes a game. He did hurt you in some areas. So he can fit particular builds, but when he's coming off the bench, I think he's probably not worth having in a standard league. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
I don't have Wood in any league. There are some leagues that is in the waiver wire. I'm not picking him up, so I'm totally on board with you.
yeah, and I also agree with the AR-15 statement. I'm kind of like high with AR-15, especially you can get out of position assist from forward for a forward when you get AR-15. Apparently, when I check him, he doesn't really shoot a lot of threes, but maybe because of those games wherein LBJ isn't playing. So I'm thinking if LBJ starts healthy, then he can get a free spot outside and then add some threes there. So that's just something that I noticed because I was targeting him in my some of my build, getting some out of position assists. So yeah,
Absolutely. And he looked really good for Team USA as well. So I think, there'll be just more opportunities for him to shoot the 3 ball as well. So he's got that confidence, a bit more hype around him this year. I think he's established himself on that team. He's no longer the young buck. He's a fantastic player, very valuable to the Lakers.
If
All
you're
right, moving on.
punting steals, if you're punting steals, is a great player to add. Really great player because the only problem with his stats is the low defensive stats and especially the steals for a guard. But if you have tons of steals or you're punting them, is perfect for you.
plus
Absolutely, and you can get steals. You can get steals off the
yeah,
wire, as we've
yeah.
seen. There's a lot of guys coming up. Bilal Koulibaly, even Delon Wright. No one's going to pick him up, but he's available. He's great with the steals. There's a lot of options. Even Rocco, as I mentioned earlier.
And free throws
By the
made, by
way,
the way. Free
by
throws made,
by the
he
way,
gets a lot of that.
your words on Rocco, I agree with you, but it was knives in my chest. I picked him up last week before, after Lou announced that he is going to play with him more.
Yeah,
Okay, I picked him up about all of my leagues, and now when he said man is the open, the opening small forward, I was like, oh man, oh, what I'm going to do? I'm keeping him just to see how it goes. Maybe someone will be injured fast. It's the Clippers, and maybe he'll get his 25 minutes as a sub. I don't know, but the situation really isn't as it was a week ago.
Yeah, it is a shame, but I think just keep an eye on it, monitor it. You'll hold him in your team. We know what he can do. He may not
Yeah,
get to those heights where he was in Philly. He was awesome, top 30 type of player,
yeah.
but he's still going to
Give me
provide
top
value. So
90. Give me top
absolutely,
90 player. It's
yep,
great.
absolutely.
I love the shot that Eric subtly mentioned. You know it's the Clipper, so someone will get injured. So I love it. I kind of like
Yeah.
sweat about it.
You
Go
know,
go ahead, D-Mac.
All right, next team. Well, speaking of the 76ers, we'll go to Philly. Yeah, very unsettled with James Harden. It's looking likely he won't return to Philly. Um, when that happens, if he's going to sit, if he gets traded, we don't know at this stage. So hopefully that's resolved soon so that we can just get some clarity and also for my personal league, so I can get some sleep as well. But in his absence, we saw a couple of guys go off, and I've talked about Tyrese Maxey previously, and I'll speak about him later on when we go through some of our top picks. But he's a huge beneficiary. But today we even saw DeAnthony Melton, so he's another guy that's going to benefit if or when James Harden is moved. So he went off today. Fantastic shooting, but sneaky Tyrese Maxey with his assists. So 12 assists is probably the highest I've seen him. I
yes.
know it's preseason, but that's a fantastic effort. So that's going to boost his value. And I'll get into a little bit more detail later around Tyrese Maxey. But yeah, the 76ers, it's not all doom and gloom if they are to move Harden away. I think they're going to have a promising future ahead of them.
I
Also on that team, obviously have Joel and Embiid. It's looking likely that PJ Tucker will be the starting power forward, just based on who started today. Paul Reed did come off the bench. He looked good, limited minutes, which is a shame, but he doesn't need that many minutes. Give him 18 to 20 minutes. He's still going to provide fantasy value. And if you listened to us earlier, you've probably picked him in the couple of the last rounds of your draft. Hopefully you have, and hopefully you didn't reach too high. He's still going to provide that value as well. Great with steals, great with blocks. He's going to give you the field goals, some points, and he can shoot the three on occasion. So I think he's still worth having, even though he is coming off the bench behind PJ Tucker. Another
And
beneficiary.
he won't kill your free throws as well.
Absolutely. I saw a clip of him famously in one of the playoff games where he had some clutch free throws to make late in the game. I think it was it against Boston? I think it was against Boston, and yeah, no sweat for him. Yeah, so Paul Reed has to be on a team, and make sure he is on a team. By the way, if he's still on a waiver wire, you go and pick him up. And
If
lastly,
he's on a waiver wire, you're playing in a tackle league. Okay, he is
for
a
sure, for
must-own
sure.
player. He should be in a team now.
completely agree. Completely agree. But check, you just never know. You just never know. And finally, I think Tobias Harris is going to benefit as well if Harden doesn't come back. He is a boring player, yes, but if he does get the opportunity, more usage, more shots, then we know that he's got good percentages, good shooter, good points, good rebounds. He's just a solid, yes, boring, but solid player, very consistent player all round. And the extra category, the 10th category of durability. So it's not often that he will miss a big chunk of the season as well. So that's important to think about. So hopefully for guys that have drafted Tobias Harris, it's probably been around that pick 100 mark. It's actually going to be a really fine pick as well. One of the old guys, one of the boring guys, but having that stability later in your draft is going to be crucial to winning as well, particularly if you've gone for some of the higher upside picks throughout your draft. Thoughts, guys?
I think he's going to be a great steal. I think he's boring because he doesn't get a lot of anything, but he gets a little bit of everything, and to get a player like this in the top 100 when he's going to be ranked, I guess, per game, uh, about top 60, top 65, even in head to head that he doesn't, pops out and gives you a lot of stats, it's going to be a great, 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 great value pick. As I said, he's one of the most underrated players in this year. Okay, especially when with Arden going probably to another team, and they're not going to get. They probably won't get a lot of players for Harden. They're going to get first round picks and things like that. So the the all of the players you said are going to probably be great beneficiaries from Harden's trade.
Absolutely. And we saw it last year with Tobias Harris. He started off like a house on fire. His steal rate was unbelievable. And I think he was easily a top 30 or 40 player to start the season. Gradually, we saw Maxi find his groove as well. So that took away a little bit of the usage from Tobias Harris. But I think, again, with that potential or likely Harden either sits or traded away, that's going to benefit Tobias Harris. All right. Moving forward, my fourth team, one of the cellar dwellers this season, but still really interesting, Washington Wizards. So we know my boy Jordan Poole, he had a shocker today, but just a couple of days ago, absolutely went buck wild with 41 points. So he's going to be up and down. Now, that's the Jordan Poole experience, and hopefully he is a little bit more consistent than having 41 one night and 7 points on 1 and 15 shooting the next. But it's going to be a fun team, right? So we've got Jordan Poole. Tyus Jones is finally the starter. We know what he did when Ja Morant went down, either injured or suspended last season. He was awesome. So hopefully he's able to carry that on. Jordan Poole, I think, will have a lot more of the playmaking role as well. So there's probably going to be a bit of a split of that ball handling situation between Tyus Jones and Jordan Poole. But I still think that's got a lot of value for Tyus Jones. I think Harpy Roy is going to talk about it, but one of the best assist to turnover ratio guys in the league, probably the best guy. So if you do care about turnovers, and we do, and I know that Eric definitely does, but I probably downweighed it a little bit, but I still consider it nonetheless. He's still fantastic for that type of strategy as well. I've talked about him earlier, Bilal Koulibaly, the French teenager. I think he's only 19, but it's looking like he may actually start based on the preseason. And we do say don't read too much into the preseason, but Koulibaly has showed that he is capable. Quiet game today, but we know what he brings on the defensive end. So when you've got guys like Jordan Poole and Tyus Jones and Kyle Kuzma, particularly Kuzma and Poole are going to chuck up shots, you need someone to defend. So you've got Koulibaly there to defend. Great shot blocker, pretty good with the steals. But alongside of him, you're going to have Daniel Gafford as well. Going to be easy top 10, maybe even a top 5 shot blocker in the league this season. And I'll talk about him later on as one of my top 5 players to watch. But Dan Gafford's going to be awesome. I think he's got real top 50 upside, maybe even higher than that this season. So watch this space. But I think that's going to be a really fun team. Kyle Kuzma, don't discount his fantasy value as well. It's hard to get that combination of high points, average percentages, but high points and good rebounds from that position. Don't understate that one as well. So interesting team. Then you've got Denny Avdia. He played and he came back today. He looked solid. He did look solid today, but I do think he comes off the bench behind Bilal. You've even got the old man in Danilo Gallinari as well. It's coming from Boston. Didn't have a great time of it there with injury. Coming back, and there's talk of Gallinari actually playing at the 5 behind Gafford, which will be interesting because Gafford really doesn't have any proper backups behind him apart from Taj Gibson or Mike Muscala. So I think playing Gallo at the 5 is actually quite an interesting move, but we'll see how that pans out. And finally, I talked about him again for those steals and some cheeky assists. Delon Wright, unbelievably ranked in the top 50 last season. That's not really indicative of how valuable he could be to your team because steals are really highly valued in fantasy. But if you are lacking in those steals, Delon Wright's the guy to go to. So yeah, interesting team, something that I want to watch and pay attention to, mainly because of Jordan Poole, my boy.
Yeah.
Finally. Yeah, go on. Go ahead, Roy.
Just want to touch some points there. So you mentioned about the moves. Actually, he's one of a highlight in one of my Q&A on last Friday. I was telling the people that who knows, who knows? There's no depth there. He can shoot 2 snipes per game and a couple of points and a couple of rebounds. But just to think deeper on that scenario, without proper good front court, it means the source of rebounds going to come in for the likes of Kyle Kuzma, for the likes of Denny Avdia, and maybe some of the guards. Given that Dan Gafford can just always catch them all. I just want to quickly share. Possibly this will get some lash out from some people because I have like a weird theory. Because I was asked, who do you like, Papi? Do you like CP3 or Tyce Jones? So I was
Mm.
explaining that despite CP3's age, uh, it's close, but I was thinking more of CP3, especially if you really need a straight up stat that you're kind of like sure. So here's my problem with Tyce Jones. Upside, opportunity and all, I don't have a problem with that. It just so happened I have like a conspiracy theory wherein I don't think as good as he is as a backup point guard and a starting point guard whenever Jai is out, I just feel that he's not the point guard of the future for the Washington Wizards. So with the direction of the Washington Wizards towards now and then probably in the future, I don't know. I just have a gut feel that eventually he gets flipped somewhat in the second half of the season, and then and then he goes back as that backup point guard, and then yeah, that just want to share that I don't encourage people to follow that. It's just my personal gut feel. But yeah, go ahead, D Mac.
Yeah, I'm on board with that idea as well because I've thought about that with Gafford, and even though he's relatively young, I think he's in his mid-20s. I don't think he's going to be the center of the future for Washington. I don't think he quite fits the demographic and probably the direction that they want to go. So I think yes, it's maybe unlikely, but it could actually happen. The worst they get throughout the season, I think they could actually look to sell off some of these players that do have good trade value.
Yeah, let's see. Something that we love to follow, right? The narrative and the direction of the teams.
Absolutely. Now, my fifth and final team, super exciting, great young core, huge future ahead of them. It's OKC. So the Thunder, we know what they're about. So SGA is their best player. But then you've got these young guys, Josh Giddey, I think he's still a teenager or maybe just turned 20. Jalen Williams, awesome. He's going into his sophomore year. He finished last season as I think a top 50 type player down the stretch. He was an awesome rookie. And then this season, another rookie, Chad Holmgren. So yeah, he had last season out, but he's looked awesome in the preseason. So another thing that we've taken from the preseason, yes, he's not up there with the Wemby hype, but he's going to be as effective and probably plays more games than Wemby down the stretch as well. Chet Holmgren, I think I took him at just after you in one of our leagues, Eric. So I took him after Wemby. Unfortunately, you sniped me on that one like you did throughout that draft. But I had Chet Holmgren. So some thought that I took him a little bit early. A couple weeks later, a couple more preseason games, he's actually going around that spot right now. And I think you'll find that having him in the fourth, having him in the fifth is actually going to be beneficial for your team. So he looked awesome as well. So this team just really excites me. Great coach as well. He's not afraid to switch it around. So if you're not performing, whoever you are, if you're Josh Giddey, he'll bench him. Doesn't really matter. And you've got young guys in the wings as well. So Usmani Dieng, even Isaiah Joe coming off as a 3-point specialist. He's awesome as well. Jalen Williams, I think he's injured at the moment, but he's a good solid center as well. So it's just a really super exciting team. Pokusevski, does anyone know what's going on with him? He was everyone's sort of sleeper last season, but we'll see what happens. He's probably been pushed out of the rotation, but let's see. Let's see there.
He's gonna be the G League MVP this season, Pokusevski.
Yeah, possibly.
I have a quick question to both of you. Um, I am foreseeing that in the future, there's a good chance that Cason Wallace could actually replace Ludor as their future off guard. I don't know if what I'm seeing about Cason Wallace, I think he's a more dynamic player. He can actually score better. And fantasy wise, he has a better fantasy outlook compared to Ludor, who doesn't or in his defense doesn't translate actually in fantasy, right? So I don't know. Do you think it's a stretch, or what are your thoughts about Wallace over Duarte?
I like his upside, but the thing is, you look at Thunder Twitter and you look at everyone that follows them and loves them. They love Lou Dort. Like we may not love him because of his lack of game around fantasy. They absolutely love him for his defensive pressure. Remember how he just locked up prime James Harden back in the playoffs a few seasons ago. They absolutely love him on that team. They love him as a starter. So I don't see that happening anytime soon, as much as we would like that to happen to get Casson Wallace onto the starters.
Sure.
I agree. I just want to say that if and when the day will come, Casey Wallace is really he had 2 steals per game in college, and steals translate pretty well from college to the NBA. So he's got much more upside, as you said, and he can be a very interesting player once he'll mature and be ready to start. But I don't view it as something that will happen this season or maybe next season. For dynasty purposes, he can be a great steal.
Absolutely. But let's not forget that they still have a war chest of picks. They've got a plethora of first
Yeah.
rounders over the next few seasons. So anything could happen as well.
And by the way, Daniel, Williams in the last 3 months of last year was ranked 26th per game.
There you go.
League
There you go.
leaders.
Yeah,
But
I don't believe he can maintain his 1.8 steals per game from this stretch, but or the 53% field goal percentages. But he still, he can be worse in both and still be a top 50 player. We're talking about top 26. It's crazy for
yeah.
3 months. So it's not like it's a 10-game stretch.
Absolutely. And we
The
know the
upside,
volatility of steals as well. So that's probably likely to come down. I don't think that's sustainable, but his efficiency is
yeah, of
awesome.
course.
We've seen it through preseason. I think that's got to be maintained. Both field goals. He doesn't take many threes, which is a shame, but at least he's got that field goal percentage really high, around that 50% mark. And the free throws really did come along. He was quite iffy to start last season, but yeah, really looked quite solid come the end of the season.
He seems to be like their player that usually steps up whenever SGA is out. I notice it in their rotation. I notice it in the preseason. I notice it with how he gets the ball, and how SGA gets the ball as well. So something to look after whenever possibly SGA sits or whatnot. So yeah.
I agree. There's a lot of guys that can carry the ball, a lot of guys that look after the ball well on that team, and yeah, Aussie bias as well. So Giddy's awesome. He played for my hometown team, so he's fantastic. So I could see him improve this season as well from a fantasy perspective, but also from a basketball perspective.
All right. And then I guess it's going to be Arek's turn.
Okay, I'll start with the Bucks. The Bucks, everybody are interested what will happen with the Bucks, from a basketball point of view. From fantasy point of view, there are a few interesting things. First of all, I think that Lillard's trade is is going to have a good effect on Yanis. Okay, from the efficiency standpoint, I think he's going to because Lillard have the ball a lot in his hands, much more than a Holiday. Yanis will his turnovers will drop. The percentage percentages, the field goal percentages, I believe they're going to be higher than last year, and maybe the need for better defense because Holiday was a top elite defender and Lillard, less. So maybe the need of defense will translate to higher defensive stats. But Yanis is the least interesting player here because we know what he's supposed to do, and I believe that the last year was an outlier. Regardless, okay, I think he's going to regress to the mean, and he was supposed to regress even without the trade. Lillard is interesting too because new situation for him. I think that is free throws attempted will drop a bit, which causes his value to decrease a bit because Lillard is the most influential player from the free throw line in the last 5 years. Last year it was Shea, but if you're taking a total of 5 years, it's Lillard easily. So attempted free throws is really important, but because of the lack of depth in the end of the first round, I still view him as a first rounder, as a top 9 or top 10 pick. And I guess in most of the draft, that's what happened. But, both of those guys aren't the most interesting players for me in this team because we all know what they're supposed to do. But one of the most interesting players is Middleton. I don't understand how he got to be so underrated. I got him yesterday. I had a draft and I got him for $6. Okay, $6 is about a top 100 player. Okay, and we're watching Milwaukee. We see them. I don't see a lot of depth. Okay, I don't see a lot of depth, and I don't see a lot of firepower, except of the two superstars. He's not going. His numbers aren't going to drop that much. Okay, I think Middleton this year, although I hate him for what he did to me last year, I think he's a steal. Okay, I think people undervaluing him and the players, the managers that take him so low in draft are gaining a lot of value. Beside him, interesting that I thought that Connaughton will be the starting shooting guard, but it seems that it would be Beasley. I don't know. I'm not sure that it got a lot of influence in the fantasy leagues, except in really deep leagues, because Beasley, even when he's good, he brings you 3 pointers, and that's about all. Okay, so if you're really desperate for a specialist to win a matchup, is good for you, but he's not someone I would keep. The last two players are Brook Lopez and Portis. I'm really cold as most people, but I'm even colder about Lopez this year. The age, the last year was so strange. Most of the centers that getting that old are stuck blocking so much, and suddenly he had an increase, a crazy increase in blocks. I guess he'll regress to his numbers, and actually I think that Portis is a bit undervalued. I think as a sub, initially I thought that he'll get hurt from the trade, but there isn't much of depth there when you're looking at the players that can provide points. So maybe Portis can be a steal as well. Not a great steal, but you get him in the 13th round, 12th, 13th round. It can be a nice value pick. That's about all with the Bucks. Something to say, guys? Agree, disagree?
Yeah, I think you covered everything. Definitely agree with Brolo. I'm also low on Brolo. I think last year was really an outlier. I think the reason why Brolo is getting drafted early is because of the allure of getting someone a center that is efficient in both field goals and free throws in some level, can shoot threes and can give tons of blocks. But then again, we aren't really expecting that to maintain. So yeah, totally agree,
Uh,
Eric.
it's perfect. It's perfect if you're punting field goals and rebounds. Okay, but you have such more sexy possibilities this year with Chet, with Wemby. Okay, so is it's not like he's the only one that gives you, or one of the only ones that gives you the combination of blocks and 3 pointers with nice free throws. You have a bunch of players that do that now. Okay, so moving on to the Jazz. Okay, so we've got an answer. I'm not sure it's a permanent one, but it seems that THT is going to start at shooting guard uh, beside Jordan Clarkson. With the front court, we already knew that it's Markkanen, Collins, and Kessler. We already talked about Collins, and in the last episodes, Collins, a player that could become. Collins was a player, as we talked in previous episodes, that was a first rounder. The fantasy, he's got a lot of fantasy appeal because he's a player that can give you really high free throws, field goals, and 3 pointers with some blocks. And pretty nice all around player. I don't believe he's going to be close to what he was, but he, he can for sure he can look much better than he was last year. Okay, I'm pretty worried about Markkanen. Uh, he's a great player, of course, but I'm not sure that he can have the same efficiency like last year from a small forward position. It's not like I am not considering him as an elite player like he was last year, but I'm a bit more worried to pick him in where he was, where he finished last year, top 15, top 20. I'm not taking him there. Uh, his rebounds might drop a bit. His efficiency might drop. Last year it was 50% from the field with three pointers. Okay, it's crazy. He got to the line 6 times. That's okay. He can replicate this, but yeah, I don't see where he can improve. Okay, I only see places where he can regress back. So he might have the same numbers and be a top 15, top 20 player again, but there's risk there. That are those are my thoughts about Markkanen. THT is a player that personally I don't like. This kind of player, really inefficient. Can provide points. He doesn't shoot the ball a lot from 3 points, from behind the arc. So uh, uh, is not someone that I drafted or picked up in any of my leagues, and I'm not sure that the backcourt will stay the same throughout the season. I think they're going to mix it up. I think that in some point Abaji is going to start. Uh, Maybe Chris Dunn. Chris Dunn isn't going to get a lot of minutes from the bat, but if things won't go as planned uh, with the Jazz, he might see more minutes. Still, it's still interesting to see because most of the players from the backcourt there are really mediocre, and you will have to use a wait and see approach because it's hard to be confident about the rotation even now.
Let's not forget
Uh,
about Colin Sexton and Keontae George. Rookie Keontae George, I think, has been hyped up as well as someone who could take over in the starting lineup as well. What do you think
I,
there, Eric?
I think that Keontae George can be a great player to take to for the second part of the season. You'll need to have patience with him because I don't see that. I think they're trying to be competitive, and I don't think that you can give the keys for the team to a rookie if you want to be, competitive like this. Uh,
May I just remind you guys of a young Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah.
yeah, okay, of course, there, but I there sometimes it happens, okay, but most of the players aren't don't end like Donny Mitchell in the first year. We can talk about Halliburton as well, but it's not common. So it might happen, of course. It might happen. I think there are slim chances, but as the season progressed, I think he'll get more minutes. Sexton, I don't trust him as a fantasy player, and I don't trust him as a basketball player. I I think he's great for being a sixth man from the bench, scoring a bunch of points, letting the starters rest. But I don't see a competitive team in the league that will start with Sexton. Okay, he doesn't provide a lot for a basketball team.
Hmm.
As a pickup player in the backyard, I think he's a killer. Okay, but really, he doesn't use the court. He doesn't passes the ball. He's got no defense. So Keontae is much more impressive.
Yeah, I think Keontae's got the upside. Even when Sexton was the man at the Cavs during the bad years, he would only give you maybe slight, 90s or 100 value because he was very one-dimensional scorer. Like you said, Eric, not much else in terms of fantasy.
Yeah, he's not even great from the free throw line. Okay, so a player like this, if he's got 87% from the line and gets there a lot, it's value. But if he's got 22% or 82% or 81% or 80%, so it's much less value because he's a guard, and guards, sorry, and guards get have a much higher free throw percentage. So moving on to the next team. The next team will be the Timberwolves. Few interesting things about the Timberwolves. Okay, so first thing, they're a really deep team. There are a lot of players there that can have fantasy value. Okay, I think it's one of the best fantasy teams in the league. Uh, when you're talking about the subs, you have their just a second, just a second. So you have there playing players like Kyle Anderson and Naz Reid. Anderson, every player that gets hurt in Minnesota uh, directly make Kyle someone to consider adding. I really like his profile as a fantasy player, so I'll add him
That's a good
immediately
point
if he's
because
not
even right now, Jaden McDaniels is questionable. I'm not sure if he's been
exactly.
ruled out, but questionable to start as well. So you would expect Kyle
Ex-
Anderson to slip in probably at the three.
Exactly. And he's doing a little bit of everything. He passes the ball really good. He's got his rebounds. He's not a good three-point shooter, but he has his games. His defensive stats are great. Okay, steals, blocks. So he's a nice all-around player, nice piece to have when someone gets injured. Naz Reid, if Gobert is injured, he's a must-own player. Okay, even if Towns is injured, you should pick him up because he's going to get more minutes. Uh, you know, Edwards, everybody knows that he's primed for a big year. I'm not, so high on him like everybody else. I hear people talking about him as a first round player. I don't see how he can, unless he'll his free throw percentage will have a bump like like Shagahead, like Shayhead. I don't see how he can get to the first round. There's some things in fantasy that makes it much harder for a player to be a first rounder. Okay, in some builds maybe, but as in vacuum, it's really hard for a player that turns over the ball and his free throws aren't elite to be a first rounder. And he's not there, but he's great second rounder and a great pick in the second round. And there's no much talking about him because we all know what how much he's worth and uh, what is how outlook. I I'm really high on the front court of the Wolves. Okay, on both Towns and Gobert. I think both of them are because they had such a bad year last year, are really underrated this year, and you can get them at cheap prices or late later than their value in drafts. Uh, I have both of them in few of my teams. I think that Towns needed the time to understand how to play next to Gobert. I think we've seen before his injury that he's getting better at it. And I think that what happened in the last game, he had a disastrous game, and then he got injured. And I think it affected the view of people of him because it took him from a second rounder to third rounder per game, and some people view him as a third rounder. In my opinion, is a second rounder 100%. And Gobert, uh, I'm not sure about his blocks, but it might they might regress, maybe not fully to what it was, but again, it was a new role and it took time to learn the role. So I'm pretty high on both of them because again, just like Middleton, they really getting picked late. Last player, two player, yeah. It's such a packed team. You can talk about every player. Conley was much better there than he was in Utah. Okay, so it's not like I'm really high on Conley, but he can have value as well. Okay, and they're really competitive, and he's really suited well there. Okay, they're playing much better with him than they play with no,
D'Angelo Russell.
yeah, with Dilo. So he can have value too, although he's not young. And Jaden McDaniels, people, I don't think I think I'm a bit higher on him than most of the people. I think he's an elite defender, and he gets better on offense. Most people maybe don't know, but he was a top five player in high school, in the country. Okay, he really got a lot of talent. He had a disastrous year in college, really bad year. What affected, of course, is a draft pick. But he looks better each year, and is really great defender. So I think there's value there as well. Something to add, to disagree?
No, I love it. And I was just going to ask you, Eric, around Cat and his value, taking him in the second round. I think it's important to remember as well. There's a lot of risk in that second round when you think about guys like Kawhi and PG, and even before probably the last couple of days around Harden as well. And I think Cat's he's solid. He's really solid, man. So yeah, I love him in the second.
Yes, exactly. Okay, and he had a lot of bad luck with injuries, but it's not like injuries that reoccur. It's always something new and misfortunate. It's not like he has back issues like some players or issues with his legs or something. He had a lot of bad luck, and I think he can have a healthy year as well, not only a high per game numbers. And I think his floor is really high as well.
Yeah. I'm getting a lot of questions on Twitter around Naz Reid, just because he's had some really solid performances at various stages in the preseason. For me, he's not rosterable, but what do you think? In a 12
He's
teamer?
not roster. He's not rosterable right now. Of course, no. But if Gobert is injured, he's 100% rosterable. He's one of those players that you need to always be aware what happening with the starting five. Because he's a super sub, like Tyus Jones was last year. Okay, last year you knew that if Jones going to play, you have to pick him as well as Melton, as well as Naz Reid. Okay, he's a player that if he plays, if he starts, is probably he's going to give you your money, your money back. He's worth the money. But
Absolutely.
if the team is full, no. I just talked about how much talent you have in this team. Okay, so there won't be enough minutes for him to make a difference fantasy wise. So I think we're on board here
Yeah,
about Reed.
absolutely.
About Reed. Okay, so let's move to the next team. The Cavs. Okay, the Cavs. Just a second.
What are
Just a second.
Arik is we're waiting with Arik. Dimac, what are the chances that Arik talks about Imani Bates?
First thing, that's his opening line. Let's do it.
Look, I talk a lot, but even I won't talk about Bates.
The master. Oh, that's a dirty joke.
Okay, so the Bucks, the Cavs. Sorry, the Cavs. I think the real change there supposed to be in the mindset. Okay, I think their playoff performance uh, showed that they can't rely of the outside shooting of their both guards. Okay, they need to go inside more. And what a better answer you have when you have such a huge talent like Evan Mobley. So I'm really high on Mobley. He's one of the players that I'm going to talk about later. So for now, I'll just say that the issue there is supposed to be more minutes and more touches, especially more touches, more usage for Evan Mobley. And I think it's going to be on the expense of Jarrett Allen as well, because there are talks about Mobley playing at the center at some times, and I'm sure that such a huge talent like Mobley should and will get more usage. Um, so we'll talk about him more later. Uh, as for the others, I think that we all know what Garland supposed to bring to the table and what Donny Mitchell supposed to be. It would be interesting if Mitchell would be able to have he's always been a good fantasy player, but last year he became a first rounder or borderline first rounder. So it's going to be interesting if he can maintain those numbers and still play more inside, give more share more the ball with with Evan Mobley. And I want to see. I hope we'll be able to see Garland and Mitchell play together better. They're not. They're really. They're really not a deep team. Okay, from the you have the Struess as a small forward. I don't think you he's a player you need to touch. At least not for now. He's not the best fantasy option. He only give you 3 pointers. Levert from the bench might be interesting, but I'm not too high on him as well. So it's a pretty slim team from a fantasy standpoint. Uh, I'm I'm not that high on Allen, but every year I'm not that high on him, and every year he shows me that I was mistaken last year. So although I think that part of his usage will drop because of Mobley, I might really be wrong here, and I might regret not having him in any of my leagues. Anything more about the Cavs?
No, I think you're spot on with Mobley playing more at the five. I think got to maximise their time with Donovan Mitchell. He's highly sought after. A lot of talk of him possibly being traded to the Knicks in the future as well. So I think they've got to maximise it and really bring Evan Mobley out of his shell as well. I think Mobley, and you'll talk about him later, Eric. I think he can easily be a top 30 type of player, future Hall of Famer, as I think people have coined him as well, which huge shoes to fill, I guess. But lofty standards, but he can get there. I think he's got that skill set to be able to get there as well. So that could be detrimental to Jarrett Allen's value. And also, there's been talk of Georges Niang. So he was a free agent that came across. So him playing more at the four will allow Mobley to play more at the five as well. So that flow-on effect would then have that negative impact on Allen.
And I really think getting Max Strus in the roster is going to be big, especially in the reality wise. His ability to really help out in the outside is actually a dog. He can actually, if you can see the preseason plays that they did, he had couple of assists during the times he's on the floor because they are actually swinging the ball better. So I guess that's gonna help out the our expectation with Mobley better. Giving more space in the paint and then
Yeah, they
getting more
needed the
stretch.
space. They needed the space. Okoro didn't give him the space. They needed the space. No,
Okoro
from a
runs. He only runs during games.
they didn't add anybody to stretch the floor from the small forward position. They needed more shooting. It was detrimental. Everybody saw it in the playoff. They need to go more inside, but part of it is stretch the floor that the bigs can work. Okay, so yes, it might, as you said, it's nice comment, a really interesting comment that stresses that Struss there might have even it you don't think of it straight away, might have a good impact on Mobley as well.
I'll counter that as well. But if you have Struess with Mitchell and Garland, that's a really small, quite defensive liable sort of tandem there as well, which again could have a flow-on effect where there's more opportunity for Allen or for Mobley to get more blocks as well. So that could play in their advantage from a fantasy perspective, not so much from a team winning perspective. It'll just be interesting to see how they balance that.
Yeah, yeah. Moving on to the last team, the Hawks. Okay, so a few things. First of all, Trey Young. I never had Trey Young before in any of my leagues. This year is the first year I have him in few of my leagues because the price was right. Okay, I think that the changes they're making and they made will have a positive effect on Trae Young. I think that last year it can. I don't think it can be worse for fantasy purposes worse than he was last year. Okay, I think when you looking at Trey Young, you see pretty big differences between the year from a 3 point and field goals percentage standpoint. You In the 1920 season, he had 3.4 3 pointers. In the 2021 season, he had only 2.2. 21 22 second 22 season, 3.1 3 pointers. Last season, 2.1 3 pointers. Okay, you can see the differences as well in the field goals department. Okay, two seasons ago, 46%. A season ago, 42.9%. 3 seasons ago, 43.8%. Okay, so we're looking at a player that had a really bad year last year, and his value dropped. Okay, I view him as a in vacuum. Okay, I'm not talking about head to head and builds and everything that people taking him in the second round. Okay, or even borderline first round. Uh, at the end of first round, sorry, or in the beginning of the second round. I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about his value in vacuum. I think he can be a second rounder. Okay, the upside is there. He's been there 2 times already. Okay, so and it seems like he has bad year, good year, bad year, good year. I can't rely on that. But a player of his caliber can and should be affected from change as well. Okay, so I'm pretty high on him, much more than most of the people I've seen. Okay, I took him in drafts, for a funny price in auction drafts, and I think moving on to the John Temari, I think Murray can have a better year as well. Okay, but I don't have a lot to talk about Murray. Murray had a nice year last year. I think his numbers are going to be about the same. I don't see his number change a lot, except from the where can go up in steals. Murray last year had only 1.5, I think. 1.5, yeah, 1.5 steals per game. Okay, that's much less than he had the season before, and it's the same like he had 2 seasons before, but he played 5 more minutes. Okay, so I wouldn't be surprised if his steal rate is going to go up because he's got this ability. Uh, so I think he may be someone that crashes ADP as well. Other from the interesting players in the team, the rotation is really interesting. The starting power forward, if it would be Sadiq Bey, I think it's supposed to be, as of now, Sadiq Bey, but we all like Jalen Johnson, right? And we all believe in his upside. I think he can at some point even be the starting power forward, and even from the bench he can have value because he's a really interesting. He has really interesting fantasy profile. Except him, of course, you have Bogdanovic that really only needs minutes to be someone that you need to own fantasy wise. Okay, except from last year and the past 2 years before, he had crazy stretches. He's a great offensive player. He showed it in the World Championship again. He's a player that I personally really like. Okay, as a player. Okay, he's a really smart player. Okay, and he should get the minutes. And the last one I saved to the end. My love, my big love, Onyeka the Great. I don't know if you noticed how many 3 pointers he shot during the off season, the preseason. Okay, uh, he looks great. Wow, he looks really. He had a great preseason, and I suspect they might even play him now that he shoots 3 pointers. That they might play him at the four a bit next to Capella, because he's a he, he has the ability, the defensive ability to be a power forward. 100% he is. Okay, and if he stretches the floor, he can. If he can shoot from beyond the arc, so there's a real possibility that it would happen. And if he'll get the minutes, okay, 4 or 5 minutes as a power forward as well, his upside becomes really really high. Okay, so I'm really high on him. I'm pretty sure he's going to crash his ADP, and I talk about him more later. So those were my 5 teams. Uh, if you have something more to add, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just
If
wondering
not,
what you guys think about the rotation. So today, last preseason game, they started Hunter and Bay. Jalen Johnson came off the bench, still had some good numbers, limited minutes, of course. But do you think that they'll go ahead with Hunter and Bay starting night?
I think initially yes, but it's not carved in stone. Just like with the backcourt of the Jazz, there might be real changes there because Bay is a bad defensive player. It's not a good defensive player, not like Jalen Johnson. Okay, and I think they might change their mind pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if there is a crossover with Onyeka Okongwu and Capella at the 4 and 5. That'll be really interesting. And obviously, with owners of Okongwu, it's a bit of a patient waiting game as well, because there is that thought and that the belief that Capella will be moved shortly, either earlier in the season or perhaps before trade deadline. So let's see what happens. But I think, yeah, like you said, he should be able to beat that ADP as it currently stands, which I think is pretty crazy high, like close to 100, which is unbelievable. So in the event that Capella is moved as well, he's potential top 50 and maybe even top 40 type of player.
Yeah.
My love Onyeka.
Your boy, your boy.
It
Yeah,
goes.
he's my boy. He's my boy.
So I'm gonna start off now from the East since Eric finished with the Atlanta Hawks. So the teams that I wanted to talk about is number one is the Miami Heat. So for the Miami Heat, I'm kind of like high with the two healthier main players of the Miami Heat, which is Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo. Of course, we have Jimmy Butler. We know what he can do. I don't want to touch more on that. But I think this year, the fact that Damian Lillard wasn't traded to Miami Heat gave me confidence on how I see Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo. I think Bam Adebayo gets more points given as the more durable bigs that we have in the early rounds. People don't like him because he doesn't have like the allure of that popcorn stats. But if you can see, he's very efficient, borderline 80% free throw guy, has good steals from a big, and then possibly get a little bit more blocks this year without a lot of defense in their front court. Tyler Hero, on the other hand, is going to be. I'm expecting him to have a bounce back year. He has been injured after being the sixth man of the year. There's weak depth in the backcourt of the Miami Heat. I think they heavily rely on him as their new facilitator. I doubt that Kyle Lowry plays a lot this year. So if I'm killing Kyle Lowry, then I'm giving what I killed from Kyle Lowry to Tyler Hero. Josh Richardson is going to be interesting as well. He takes plays the ground and pound of the Max Struses and the Gabe Vincents. He also is there to really be there one of the reliable defender aside from Caleb Martin and of course Jimmy Butler. So I think uh, uh, Josh Richardson is going to get not a major role but an important role this year for the Miami Heat. One thing that really bugs me is the contract of Josh Richardson and their ability to possibly get another player. So when I looked at possible trade scenarios, there's only one player that really would skew my assumption for those players, and that's going to be James Harden. And personally, I don't think because the usual question that I have in mind is do they take James Harden for a year or they stick with Kyle Lowry for another year? So that's just my question. And then yeah, what do you think, guys?
If they've got the chance to get him for a year, a bit like Kawhi Leonard to the Raptors, I think you go there because Butler's not getting any younger. Bam's not a young man anymore. He's still in his prime, but he's not a young man anymore. You'd maximize that opportunity. But yeah, that's you mentioned that to me the other day, going, that would be massive if that happened to go through.
Yeah, and because initially there were some rumors about Donovan Mitchell not being secretly happy in the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then
Mm.
there's some rumors that that's the new Miami Heat target, the Loki new Miami Heat target. But then again, those are still rumors. I still think Miami Heat. So every year, I still think Miami Heat needs a certain piece, but for some reason they prove me wrong always. That apparently they have dogs. Apparently they can still win without another
Mm.
big player. Thing is, I do believe they don't need kind of like that straight up point guard because they have a lot of playmakers. Bam is a playmaker. Jimmy Butler is a playmaker. So I think they need a player that makes plays. You know, that's the reason why they really needed Kyle Lowry at some point during the playoffs because Kyle Lowry can make play, even though not just facilitating, just getting to the basket, trying to push paces. So they needed someone like that, and it really that's kind of like the missing piece I have for my projection and me being high on Tyler Hero and Bama de Bayo because maybe that's Brogdon. Maybe that's something that they could add. I don't know if it's Tyus Jones. Maybe that could help. Uh, Still, I think there should be a move coming in for the Miami.
Yeah, let's not forget that they almost missed playoffs last season as well. They only
Exactly.
scraped in. They only scraped in. They performed outstandingly, but they only just scraped in as well.
And then late deep leagues, I think Duncan Robinson could actually help out shooting threes. Last in the previous years, we went. Everyone went bitter with Duncan Robinson. I think without Strus and uh without much shooting aside from Josh Richardson, it's possible that Duncan Robinson gets that two snipes per game this season. Next team from my end, the Boston Celtics. Ooh, wow. I like what they did. The question there is the bench. Whenever I see their starting five, I love it. I'm a big Derek White fan, especially I'm biased because he was a San Antonio Spur. Um, I think it's going to be big. So I won't talk about the main players here because I think they won't have a lot of variance there. Possibly in points, given that Kristaps Porzingis comes in. I just think it's not that big for Jason Tatum, given that he really needs to be that main man. The moment they come into the playoffs, they need to always have that main man that gets the ball, and that's going to be Jason Tatum. So I'm not worried about that for Jason Tatum. For Jalen Brown, on the other hand, then that's possibly the impact that Porzingis gives whenever in terms of usage. So maybe Jalen Brown gets some of the points taken out. Um, Drew Holiday, on the other hand, we are expecting this, but usually we get Drew Holiday just because of his ability to defend. So I don't think him not getting a lot more points than before would be a problem, given that you don't get Drew Holiday for his points. But it's expected that he'll definitely lose some points. On the flip side, I really like Derek White because I'm thinking, knock on the wood, if something happens in the front court of the Boston Celtics, I think aside from getting another whoever big that they needed in the team. I think Derek White needs to be always in the court because what he brings as one of the better rebounding guard, one of the uh, uh a player that disrupts offense. So people went salty after the Drew Holiday trade. Me, I'm obviously I won't take Derek White that high, but have you seen his blocks this preseason? So it's really hard to avoid the temptation. I'm still gonna pick Derek White in a good value, so I'm not low with Derek White. Other than that, Tito Al, Uncle Al, as I can say, is this is going to be his last hooray, possibly. So I'm pretty sure he's gonna go all out, but up to what extent? So that's the question. Do we see a lot of Luke Cornett going in some of the games? That's gonna be fun to see. But yeah, so anything you want to you kind of like saw for the Boston Celtics?
Well, who do you think starts? Is it going to be Derek White or is it going to be Big Al?
I think it's going to be Derek White.
Yeah, I
Uh,
would agree with you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me
I think.
too. Me too.
I have a question.
Do,
Peyton
yeah,
Pritchard. Do you think Peyton Pritchard could be that seventh man of the bench?
yeah. I think he can be. I just don't think that he's going to be fantasy relevant. While Drew Holiday and Derek White's still on the team. Yeah, I think he can be the seventh man, but he's a good shooter, high quality shooter. He's just not going to be fantasy worthy for me.
Yeah. And then let's move to my third team. Uh okay, so before I move into my third team, let me just do you want to give your top 5, a rundown of your top 5, Eric, before I move to my
Yes,
third team? Yeah, there you go.
yes, yes. Thank you. I'll give you my top five. Again, those are players. Some of them I talked about before.
Mm.
I'll give them first. Um, so my top five are okay. As I said before, Onyeke Okongo is going to. I think he's going to have a great year. I think that even if Capella stays, he's going to crash his ADP. He was a top 75 player last year, mainly from the bench. Okay, and he is now shooting 3 pointers. He's moving more in the court. He looks better offensively. His ticket was a really good defensive player that switches great, but now I see more of offensive presence. The second player, as I talked about, is Mobley. Okay, as I said, he's a great talent. Uh, Great defensive talent. I think he's going to be defensive player of the year. Okay, uh, I think he's that good, and I think it is going to be reflected in his numbers. His only problem is his free throw percentages, and that's why I'm not sure how high he's going to be ranked because I'm not sure he's going to improve that. But I believe his usage will be higher. I think he'll add rebounds. I think he even add some blocks this year. The third player, I already talked about. It's funny because I picked five players and I talked about every single one of them. Trey Young, yeah, Trey Young. There's nothing. There's not a lot more to say. I think a player of that caliber should know how to progress from a bad year like he had last year. I think the changes from the team will be good for him. Okay, yes, he'll have games like he had yesterday, 15 from the field, but I think we'll see them less. Okay, I think he's more mature, and I think he's able to be back to the second, maybe even not if second round, borderline second round, or the start of the third round. The last two players I have are Towns and Gobert. I talked about them before. Uh, again, I think Minnesota as a team. I'm really high on Minnesota as a team. I think they will look better this year, and even though the West is really competitive, I think they'll have much more success than to be playing team. I think they'll have a playoff spot, and every player, every part of this machine will look better. Okay, I think they already looked better last year. uh, Even in the playing, they played solid basketball, and against the Nuggets they played solid basketball. We thought, we didn't understood how much, but the Nuggets killed, all the playoff, they killed it. So we now may have an understanding about how really good Minnesota could be. Okay, and Gobert and Towns are a great part of it, uh, and I'm really, 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 really high on their outlook. So those are my five players.
There you go. Thank you so much,
Nice, Eric.
Eric. And then I do believe you need to jump out, but it's always a pleasure having you in the
Yeah,
show,
thank you.
Eric.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, I have an
No,
emergency.
no problem, no problem. We'll try to get
Thanks,
another
Eric.
episode, guys, with Eric, because it's almost what I call this. It's almost regular season, so I'm pretty sure we need to find another time to get another episode before the actual season. So thank you so much, Eric. By the way,
Thank
don't
you,
See you,
forget
Eric.
guys.
to
Loved it. It was great as always.
See you soon, my
yeah,
friend.
see you soon, Eric. Don't forget to
Bye.
download Day to Day Fantasy app, guys. Okay, so going back to my teams, let me quickly move to the Golden State Warriors. One of the teams that actually is the favorite here in the Philippines. So for the Golden State Warriors, I'm a little bit uh torn here because torn in a sense that I they got CP3, so that's fine. It's just that there's some of the players that I like that plays glue guy role that were out. Specifically, the likes of Dante DiVincenzo. I just think he was a very good role player for what the Golden State Warriors are doing. But still, they have the old crew back, so it's practically the same but this time with CP3. So I don't think we need to spend time talking about everything aside from number one CP3. I think he fits well. I think he'll definitely get a lower version of what he usually does every year. To be honest, I think he could be a little bit healthy this year compared to last season. So that's good, I guess. But I would like to spend much time talking about other new guys aside from CP3. One of my favorite is Dario Saric. There was a question in our Q&A wherein, hey Roy, what do you think about Jonathan Kuminga? I mean, I like the dude. He's a fun, young, upcoming player. But I just think that is what the Golden State Warriors is trying to do right now. He might be a little bit raw for that. He gets we see a lot of good games from the preseason, but I see him like a Rui Hachimura of the Golden State Warriors, someone who needs usage to really contribute. And with such a lot of usage guys around and a healthier Andrew Wiggins, I just think what Darius Saric offers as that role player and almost a non-defender Draymond Green. I see him like that a non-defender Draymond Green. I think he has more importance. But I don't know, but that's just me. What do you think, D-Mac?
Yeah, good point. I think Wiggins missed a lot of the season as well. So, talking about DiVincenzo from last season, he was a good glue guy, but let's not forget that Klay Thompson missed quite a lot of games, resting and whatnot. Wiggins missed a lot of the season as well. So DiVincenzo's value was sort of propelled by that. CP3 coming in, really awesome. That just means Steph will play more off guard, which suits him. Actually does suit him. I don't think it's going to impact his fantasy relevance and his fantasy trajectory. It'll be interesting to see how that does impact CP3. If he starts, he may have good solid value. If he does come off the bench, that's going to impact him, even if it's just by a couple of minutes, 2-3 minutes. It will impact his fantasy value. So that'll be interesting to watch. But Kuminga, he smashed it. He looks amazing in preseason. But like what you said, I think there's just going to be too many bodies, too much usage by the other guys to be able to afford him enough usage to be fantasy relevant in standard leagues. So I think he's been a popular late round pick, a waiver wire pickup as well. I just don't think it'll be long until he's back on the waiver wire, unfortunately.
Yeah, especially in the first half of the season, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Next team that I have is the Houston Rockets. I like the Houston Rockets. They got a very good coach now. They got good vets. I like the vets that they acquired. I mean, I love Jeff Green. You know, it's like a trip to old school Seattle Supersonics for me. Whenever I see Jeff Green and he dunks. Remember last season, there's some highlights that he dunks. I don't know if it's just me. I just love seeing those dunks. It's like, oh, represent,
Uncle
represent for the
Jeff.
Dodgers.
Uncle
Uncle
Jeff. It
Jeff.
was good to see. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they got of course Fred Van Vliet. In terms of fantasy, he's been sliding. As in slide like way to the third round. I think there's value there. There's a lot of value. I think he's going to have a very good season as that their main guy. But when I say main guy, doesn't mean he chucks a lot of scores, right? There will be games that he need to do that. But I think the main goal of Imi Udoka by getting someone like uh 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 FBB there is to create a culture, to establish a system. And then this is going to be their first year together, so it's going to be a process.
Yep.
I
He's a
love
proven winner. Proven winner.
proven winner, underdog. When you even talk about underdog, that's Fred Van Vliet for sure.
Mm.
I also love Jabari Smith. So Jabari Smith is someone that I now is being picked earlier than usual. So I remember we had a talk, right? Like the five bigs, you have the Dan Gafford, Okongwu was mentioned and all, and then part of it is Jabari Smith. And during that times, it was Okongwu and Gafford. Maybe Mark Williams, that's super high. Now it's different. People are really getting Jabari Smith like way ahead of those guys. So
Yeah.
I really like Jabari Smith. If you're someone that doesn't think high of Alfred Sengun, it will definitely be logical if you get some Jabari Smith stacks. Because if Alfred Sengun wouldn't work, then I'm pretty sure Jabari Smith will work, right? Because that's how it does. That's what the logic behind it. But me, I think both works. So I love both of the guys. I think they have different things to offer. We've talked about this several times. I won't touch on it a little bit today. Let me just say that I was pretty disappointed with the acquisition of Reggie Bullock and the better or more time that Deshaun Tate gets, because it hits one of my favorite late round picks, which is Tari Eason. I think Tari
Mm.
Eason is a very very good player. I think at some point Imi Udoka, I think he knows. I think he knows. It's more of like really balancing out or creating the culture or the system. I think he'll still get much minutes. It's just cap right now. He's an upside pick, but I think the Reggie Bullock and Deshaun Tate playing a little bit more caps him. But given that last year they are really bad at defense, at some point it's gonna turn around. I think Terry Eason will get some steam. Maybe it's after a week that they see that is really one of their best defender. What do you think, Dima?
Yeah, I love Tari Eason. I think he's got that upside. He's a great defender. I think he's quoted as being saying he has said that he would like to be the best defender in the league as well. So that's a lot to say and sort of where he sees himself in a few years' time. So hopefully that stems into this season where he does have the ability to show off and show his wares as well. But yeah, that acquisition of Reggie Bullock does cap Eason. It caps Whitmore as well. So rookie Cam Whitmore. So it would have been nice for him to have some minutes as well. It's good having Jeff Green in there for that veteran presence along with FVV. But we haven't even talked about Amen yet, my poster boy.
There you go. To be honest, I forgot it, but I think it really went well that you mentioned it. I'm gonna give you that time to talk about Amen because I know he's your guy.
He's one of my guys. I think Amen being NBA Fantasy Bible. Look, I actually think his brother in Detroit, Osar, has the better runway to fantasy value this season as a likely starter, whereas our man will likely come off the bench. Still tremendous upside. Fantasy stat set is amazing. Both him and his brother, amazing stat set. So if you do have a dynasty league coming up, make sure that they're taken in one of the early rounds as well. So, man, maybe this year's not his year. Just working behind Jalen Green, FVV, even a little bit behind Dylan Brooks as well. But he's still worthy of having that late round pick for Eamon Thompson. So hopefully you had that opportunity in your drafts, or if you've got drafts coming up, make sure he's not on the board.
For sure, for sure. And then yeah, just be wary about. I love what Dimak mentioned there. Um, you need to be patient with a player like Amen. But he's definitely good. I think he's going to be. He needs to be their guard of the future, no
Yeah.
doubt about it. Last team. This won't be a surprise. So let me talk about my San Antonio Spurs. I think they're gonna win more than 30 games. Also, I think I'm gonna gain a lot of friends, new friends coming in just because of Wembanyama, Project Wemby, in progress. I don't know. I just love the San Antonio Spurs. First and foremost, people are now giving more attention to the Spurs and to Wembanyama. That for me really sucks because a humble, undervalued team and player now becomes overrated just because of those hype, right? Totally fine. It is what it is. But I just think humbly and slowly we'll be winning. Not to the point that we'll be in the play-in tournament, but we'll definitely be better last year. Um, Off the bat, I really knew that Coach Pop will not only be doing something best for Wemby, but will be trying to upgrade his coaching style, which is they are actually, for me, trying to be the team that will execute a positionless basketball. That's the reason why I was a little bit um lower or wasn't really high on Trey Jones, just because Trey Jones last year he was in the path to create plays, not only the playmaking job but also create plays from himself. That's not gonna happen now. We have a healthier Devin Vassell. We have a healthier Keldon. Well, Keldon Johnson was healthy last year. We have a healthier Jeremy Sohan. We have Wembanyama. He'll definitely give point guard stats, but I think it will be scattered. Jeremy Sohan is now called Point Sohan. I think Devin Vassell will give an ample amount of times as well. That goes as well with Keldon Johnson if he goes from the bench, right? So I love it. I just it's so fun. It's I love to root to a team that you there was glory days before, then there were dark days, like so dark, and now there's a glimmer of big light. So fantasy wise, Point Sohan has been being rich right now. Earlier in my draft, I was hoping to get him on a value. I was drafting him a round earlier, but he was sniped 2 rounds earlier. So that's what's up. Uh, and then still, the only player that is still being undervalued for me is Zach Collins. I like Zach Collins. He always slid to my side. I like him because, knock on the wood, to be honest, if you have constraints and you have, you're afraid of Victor Wembanyama, I think Zach Collins is his handcuff. And he is a good handcuff because he's already contributing while Wembanyama is there. So if, knock on the wood, Wembanyama sits or whatnot, then Zach Collins goes big like the end of the year last season. So that's something that I really love. And then lastly, I'm kind of like confident with Wembanyama now. Something that I shared in our Q&A. Dame is out of the Portland Trailblazers. Scoot is on a mission. He'll definitely try to be a rookie of the year. That goes as well with Chet. You saw the rivalry between Wembanyama. They went with each other. So this is going to be good for Wemby. Why? Because he will be forced to really play more. San Antonio Spurs will be forced to really make him play more because as one of their prime player after Duncan Robinson and Tim Duncan Robinson rather David Robinson and then Tim Duncan, I think they need or they want Wembanyama to win the Rookie of the Year. So I love the challenge because it gives a good reason for Wembanyama to play. And that's for me for the San Antonio Spurs. What
I
do you
love it.
think, D-Mac?
Yeah, I love it. And you mentioned there was some dark days, but for you to see the light, you have to have those dark days to understand when the bright days are upon you. But yeah, it is definitely now, and you're going to get a lot of televised games as well. So Spurs are going to be in the headlights. So is Wemby. So it does bode well for him playing more this season. Like you said, he wants to win that Rookie of the Year. That rivalry with Chet goes back many years to international underage tournaments as well, France versus US. So I think they've got that rivalry. Scoot's come out all guns are blazing. He wants to win it. He thinks he's the best rookie. So yeah, that's great for Wemby staying on court. But whether or not that is conducive to what the Spurs think, or depending on how they're sitting in the standings, if they think they have this generational talent that they need to take care of come the end of the season, then that's just what's going to happen, irrespective of awards or whatnot. But it's just so exciting. He is next level. We've never seen anyone like him. I'm happy he's in, and I've picked him up in my keeper league. I'm extremely happy with that. That's a 10-year project, and hopefully I'll have a great deal of success with him on my team.
Yeah, I kind of like tweeted something that I know you love, given that you already have Wemby. It's like me talking to Wemby that hey, it's me and you for the longest time, brother. It's me and
That's
you, buddy.
that's
Okay.
it.
To cap up our episode, this was a nice episode. I know it was all around the place, but I think you definitely get a lot from it to the audiences. So Eric gave his 5 before Dima closes it with his 5. I'm gonna give my 5. Uh, this 5 isn't like just like the SGA type 5. Maybe some of them, but this is the 5 players that we're excited of, possibly our favorites, and then we're kind of like big going into the season. I'll start off with a player that people doesn't really pick right now. But I think we've talked about the likes of John Collins. We've talked about before Miles Bridges. Let me talk about Jonathan Isaac. Jonathan Isaac, I really love this dude. I really love him because people don't drop him. That's number one. So it's a free meal for me. Um, Jonathan Isaac before was primed to be a fantasy god just because of his ability to defend. He shoots threes. He's a little bit inefficient. And then before, he was primed to be the main man of the Orlando Magic. It's a different era right now. So definitely he'll be playing off the bench. But imagine this. You have a defensive player type of a player coming off the bench against bench players of other team. How good is that? If I imagine, when I imagine that, and then hey, I'm a bench player. Oh, this should be fun. And then Jonathan Isaac is guarding you. It sucks for other teams. So I don't know. I'm just seeing definitely not like a second round, third round value, maybe, but it's hard for that to really happen. But I'm pretty sure he's gonna be within the top 100 before end of the season. Hopefully he gets healthy and hopefully he sells shoes. Because I was joking. What's the main reason for the Orlando Magic to play Jonathan Isaac? I told in my Q&A because he sells shoes. He has this shoe line that is for the church or whatnot. So I support that. Oh, yeah. So my
That's a
next
hot
play,
take. Top 100 hot take though. Hot
yeah.
take because yeah, it's very different that team with Banquero and Franz and Wendell Carter Jr. at the 5 as well. It's he's not going to get many minutes, but I see what you're doing with the defensive stats and the value that provides. I can see he could feast with the second unit potentially.
Yeah, and the moment that Orlando needs to win and then notices that hey, we really need some defense, a good old ass defense. I think they will see that Jonathan Isaac is probably one of or probably the best defender that they have in the team. the direction is there. You know why? Because they already decided that, hey, you know what? Let's play Jalen Suggs in our second as our SG instead of a better shooter on Gary Harris. So when I see that, so they value defense then. So that's the reason why, hey, maybe this could work. So that's kind of like the thinking I had, the thought that I had when that
Mm,
happened. So when Jalen
interesting.
Suggs statement was I saw that Jalen Suggs statement from the coaching staff. I didn't think of Jalen Suggs. I actually thought of Jonathan Isaac instead.
Right. So value defense, but not spacing though.
Yeah, yeah.
That's an issue.
They
Yeah.
wanted to go all in, especially with someone like Markel Fultz who doesn't shoot threes, right? So
Mm,
we all me I was thinking that, hey, is Gary Harris gonna give us two snipes and 1.5 steals? Then in deep leagues he should be rostered, and then Jalen started. So it was,
yeah.
ooh, wow, that's
Yeah.
nice.
So would
Um,
you draft Jonathan Isaac in a 12-team league?
no, in the 12 team league, no. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna closely monitor it. To be honest, I didn't draft him. I picked him in one of my 12 team leagues when he was in a GTD status. So he's now hidden in my IL plus. So yeah, you have to be sneaky on those type of moves. um, Next player, not a surprise. Won't talk much about it. Alfred Sengun. You know, I love this dude. He's already showing flashes. It's not perfect. Definitely not perfect. I think in contrary to people saying that Imi Udoka is a defensive coach, Imi Udoka is also a smart coach. And a smart coach knows a good player. And I think he knows Alfred Sengun is a good player. He's gonna he's gonna make him better, and he's gonna cover him with good defenders like Tari East or like Jabari Smith Jr. I think that could work, but maybe that's me. So I'm good with I love Alfred Sengun here.
And just
Tyler
on
Heath,
that point, I don't just with
yeah, sure.
Vidoka, I don't know if you saw the footage the other day where quite poignant actually, where he pulled Sengun off, and we were thinking he's benching him. He's having a poor game against Wemby. It's no disgrace, by the way. Pulled him off, actually had a quick chat, and then put him straight back on. Didn't miss any time. It was just a quick conversation. I thought that was really good coaching.
Exactly. Aren't you excited? I love these young teams. And shout out for mentioning that. Wemby did really block his shot in that sequence. Pretty
Yeah,
clean, squeaky clean.
yeah.
And
Well, he smothered
Alperingun
them.
was backing him down, right? Wemby
Yeah,
so long, man. Uh,
yeah. He made him look tiny. He made him look
exactly,
minute.
exactly.
Yeah,
And Alperingun is a big dude.
yeah.
Um, Tyler Hero is my next player. I've talked about him earlier. I don't want to talk more about it. I don't know. I think uh I think he's gonna get that Jamal Murray, Jordan Poole esque type of a year. Of course, a little bit lower tier, but if I could get someone like that in the middle round, super happy. Um, Next two players should have been three. Would have like put place Sohan here. By the way, the reason why I love Sohan, I named my son Zohan after the
Ah,
movie. Don't mess this with the Zohan. So people are asking me to make Q&A. Hey, Roy, do you like Sohan? I was telling them, oh, that's like, don't even ask. Any Spurs
yeah.
player, I can make an argument out of it, especially Sohan. But let me talk about the two players. I've been talking maybe the first tweet about fantasy that I did for this year probably is about either of these two, Devin Vassell and Victor Wembanyama. I'm not gonna do a statement because we've been there. The only thing that I'm gonna say is I'm super excited about these two guys. I think they will try to win. I think there's a good culture there. The reason why I love the San Antonio Spurs because they know what they do and then they always start off with a good established culture and system. And for me, that's important. I know it won't kind of like heavily impact in fantasy, but actually it does. Because creating an established system that they will do consistently in 82 games is going to help out our fantasy players, specifically out from the San Antonio Spurs. For the longest time, the Dan Vesprizes, the Josh Lloyds doesn't want players from the San Antonio Spurs. So what's up with you with Victor Wembanyama and Devin Vassell and Jeremy Sohan right now? So what's up? Now you're getting some San Antonio Spurs players. So yeah, so this is me being confident go get some San Antonio Spurs players. I love them. And yeah, I'm so happy with what's happening right now with my team. And I will go back to DMAC with his top 5.
Yeah, I won't spend too long because I think we've talked about it ad nauseum in our previous episodes. Jordan Poole had a shocker today, shot 1 of 15, 0 of 6 from the 3-point line. But just a couple of days earlier, 41 points on 10 of 19 shooting, 6 of 12 from the line. It's the Jordan Poole experience. I think we're going to have more of the great games as opposed to the shockers like we had today. I think just the amount of usage that he's going to have and the ability to run that team, I think he's just going to have that. He's got top 30 upside, and I wouldn't be surprised if he makes it there, particularly if you discount turnovers. So top 30, here we come. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, he could easily get 30, 34, 35 minutes per game. Free throws are elite, one of the most elite in the game. Field goals are going to be an issue, but if you can, particularly in head-to-head, if you can build around that field goal percentage or punt it, you're doing a really great job as well. If you can get him on your team, and he was going in the 5th rounds, if you still have drafts, it's very unlikely you'll get him in the 5th round now. But yeah, I love him, and I have the entire preseason. Next one, Cade Cunningham again.
Can I ask a quick question to you, D-Man?
Of course,
very quick.
Of course.
If Jaylen Brown slides, do you pick Jordan Poole over him?
Yes.
OG Anunoby or Jordan Poole?
Poole. Yep.
There you go.
You can get defensive stats later on.
My man. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm backing him. Cade Cunningham, again, talked about him all preseason, all off-season, to be honest. He's going to have that bounce back. 3rd-year breakout. It's happening, guys, particularly if you punt turnovers. So you may go, well, he's only going to be a top 60 guy with turnovers. But again, I disregard turnovers as well. So top 30, top 40 type of season is in the midst as well. Again, field goals are going to hurt, but build that up with some high-level big guys come at the later end of the draft as well. Of similar note, probably Jordan Poole light, but Anthony Simons. He's going to be the main guy. And I know we had a cheeky conversation on Twitter around Anthony Simons not being the main guy, and it's going to be Scoot's team. To a certain degree, it will be, but I still think that Anthony Simons is going to be dominating usage. That usage rate is going to be sky high. We've seen it before when Dame Lillard's not been in the team. He was injured, and Anthony Simons came in, and he looked amazing. And he has looked really good in the preseason, and I expect that to carry on throughout the regular season. So, yeah, you've got Shaden Sharp, you've got Scoot Henderson.
Jeremy Grant. Don't forget the ultimate
Don't forget Jeremy
chucker.
Grant. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's a big chucker, but I just think that Simons is going to demand the ball. He's going to have some assists as well, a combo sort of guard as well. But the points, he could be top 15, top 10 maybe on the scoring chart. Easy 25 points per game, I think. Almost 4 threes a game. That's elite level sort of scoring there. So watch this space. I look forward to monitoring his progress there. Next one, Tyrese Maxey. That's a bit of a no-brainer when it comes to James Harden situation as well. Harden goes, Maxey's going to be top 30. If Harden's still there, I still think top 50 is within reason. Elite numbers in terms of shooting percentages. He's going to get his threes. He really upped that, particularly in the playoffs last season. And I think he can improve on his assists, even with Harden there. Let's assume Harden won't be there. We saw the game today, preseason, 12 assists. Come on, boy, let's do this. I think, top 30 is in reach if Harden's not there and a similar ilk player doesn't return. And my last player, very different. So 4 guards to start with, quite similar in their types of games. But my 5th one, I had to mix it up a bit, Dan Gafford. So I spoke earlier about the Wizards. I think he's really important to their structure. Being able to have that guy just to mop it up. He's going to be one of the top 10 guys in terms of blocks. And there's going to be a lot of the guys there that do that. But I think combination of blocks, he's going to get possibly 12 points on 70% shooting, which is valuable. He's not going to kill your free throws. Not a huge rebounder, but 7 to 8 rebounds a game is extremely valuable as well. So he's got top 50 upside. Um, but like we talked about earlier, it could be blown up later in the season depending on how they're going. But I would still have confidence in him ending the season in Washington as the starting center and having that top 50 value. So keep an eye on that one, guys.
And also in Yahoo app, Dan Gafford has now gotten the center eligibility. So that's good news for Dan
That is
Gafford.
good news. Yeah, it does give you that flexibility as well. It was strange that he was power forward eligible. I guess he
Yeah.
played some power forward next to Porzingis last season.
What are they thinking? Putting a
Power forward
hard,
next to
and
Porzingis. Yeah.
it's a hard PF, right? It isn't
Yeah.
even says PF or center. So yeah, that was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Just straight PF.
There you go. So I guess that's it for this episode. It was a long episode, but we really tried to give in more to you guys, to our audience. We even planned going to all of the 30 teams, but we only have time. There's no luxury of time nowadays. We're happy family man here, so there's a lot of things to do. So join us, because I think there's a lot of dads that are playing fantasy just like us. So I think you can actually poke fun with the jokes that we have with each other. We have almost the same wavelength. Any parting words, T-Mac? Any outlier, anything you have in mind before we end the show?
I think the preseason was interesting, and we didn't rush to conclusions with a lot of things around preseason, but it did give us indications on how the regular season may start as well. There's certain guys that have come up rankings, Bilal being one of those guys. But I think preseason was fun, and it was just highlighted by Wemby. It was just Wemby preseason, really, and it's very exciting. It's super exciting, particularly
Exactly.
you as a Spurs fan.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But I also love the 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 Sacramento Kings Golden State Warriors here. It was like, hey, is this still preseason? I mean,
Yeah.
Curry is a bad, bad man. He
Yeah.
really he has something to prove to the Sacramento Kings. I was telling that it light the beam, but apparently they Curry light them up.
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
One thing about Curry, by the way, I think people are hating with Curry doing the jump ball against Wemby. They think it's trolling. I think given that with all due respect to Stephen Curry, I think um his years are numbered. I would love him to play like forever, right? But it's going to end at some point, and I think this is part of those years wherein, hey, we have a very talented player here. Why not get a moment with him, right? So I was actually happy. I think for me, I treated it as like a something that makes me think he respects what San Antonio Spurs and Wembanyama is doing right now. So I love it. So I hope those, I don't know, some bashers saying that that's a disrespect to the game, trolling and all. We all know haven't you watched how Stephen Curry does the sleeping taunt, or in the All-Star game, literally sleeping in the court, right? It's Steph Curry. Come on,
I
guys.
love it. We need those characters in the game, not just basketball, but yeah, life can be very serious. But let's lighten up a bit.
Yeah, I guess they need some clout or some news to spread, but
Yeah,
I don't care. I'm a happy Spurs fan.
that's
There you
good.
go. So D-Mac, follow NBA Fantasy Bible. Anything up for you, brother?
Yeah, actually, I'm starting my new show. I'll speak to you about that later on. But yeah, filming tomorrow, actually. So big news. I've got a guest as well. So someone new to the industry. So watch this space. It's going to be pretty exciting.
For sure, for sure. And then I'll definitely share it to the community. And then people are actually valuing your thoughts, D-Mac. I was happy that I knew you from last year. We did collaborate with each other. I've learned a lot from you. So I'm super excited for you with this new show.
Thank you, my friend. Yeah, it'll be good. We'll have you on as well. I need a wonderful guest like yourself.
For sure, for sure. And then also for me, since we have a long ass episode, let me just utilize that.
May
Uh,
as well.
next year, the reason why I wasn't able to invite D-Mac and Eric and some of the foreign analysts that I used to invite in our leagues, we're preparing for that. I kind of like mentioned this a couple of episodes ago, we'll be having that uh PH versus the world. I know T-Mac is has a Filipino
LBPH.
lineage, right? But I'm gonna count you as an Aussie right now. So we're gonna build a very strong eight international fantasy analyst team. And they won't work as a team, but as a group, I guess. And then I'm gonna the top eight from our draft for Mount Rushmore. You were in that league last year, right? So in our Mount Rushmore this season, it's going to be a qualifier. So the top eight will be going against you guys, the top eight fantasy analysts that I'll be inviting. So it's going to be fun. And next year, it's a league that I envision that we actually follow every week. For now, we'll be following Eric and DMAX team in the FBI and Locked On League. So you'll have definitely part of the episode to talk about what are you doing with DMAC. I hope you snipe each other's free agent ads. I love to see you
Yeah.
get into each
Eric
other.
owes me. Eric owes me for getting Wemby one pick before me.
Oh, by the way, last question. Do you want me to pick Wemby over Cat tomorrow?
Yes, do it. You're a Spurs fan, you have to.
I have to. Guys, I'm gonna live and die as a Spur tomorrow. I don't care. I don't care about the upside Eric was talking. Cap who? I'm gonna draft Wemby tomorrow. Triple J and Wemby. Pick number 16. Watch out for my build tomorrow. Going all in. It's going to be fun. Thank you, DMAC. Thank you, guys. It was fun. I hope you had fun. We, as you can see, we have some personal lives. We kind of like tired at some point, but when we talk fantasy, when we share each other passion, it's contagious. The energy is contagious. We're super excited. I hope you are too. Please continue to support us. We'll be doing this all throughout the season. And have a happy weekend, everyone. Thank you, DMAC.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.